Well, welcome and good afternoon. I am delighted to be here today with you all as we are joined by so many incredible people on this panel and this discussion today. I am Christian Heyne. I'm the Vice President of Policy here at Brady. And today I am lucky enough to be speaking with some incredible people that are doing incredible work, all working to end gun violence and to have a positive impact in communities across this country. I'm joined by Representative Stephen Horsford of Nevada, Greg Jackson, the Executive Director of the Community Justice Action Fund, and Erica Ford, the co-founder of LifeCamp. Congressman Horsford is currently serving his third term in the U.S. House of Representatives as the representative for Nevada's 4th District. In 2013, when Rep. Horsford first took office as a member of Congress, he became the first African-American member of Congress to represent Nevada. Rep. Horsford serves as the first vice chair for the Congressional Black Caucus and is a member of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. Congressman Horsford sits on the House and Ways and Means, Budget, and Armed Services committees. We are also joined today by Erica Ford. Now, Ms. Ford is the co-founder of LifeCamp, a community violence intervention program in New York City that provides youth and families that have been impacted by violence the valuable tools that they need to stay in school and out of the criminal justice system. Erica has been at the forefront of reducing youth and community violence in New York City and beyond for more than 30 years. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Greg Jackson, the Executive Director of the Community Justice Action Fund. CJAF is a nonprofit organization that's building power for and within communities of color to end gun violence. CJF is changing the conversation on gun violence prevention by leading with the people closest to the pain of everyday gun violence in this country. Greg has been with CJF for 3 years and is a community organizer, political strategist, and issue advocate for proactive and preventative solutions to end gun violence. Greg is also a gun violence survivor, and he knows all too well the stress and trauma that comes from gun violence. I am truly honored to be sitting here with all of you today to have this critical conversation and to discuss why it's so important, all of the incredible advocacy that's being done across the country to really secure funding for community violence intervention strategies, why this federal investment in these strategies can save lives, and why it's so critical and important. I'm hoping we can get in the weeds on this. So thank you all for joining me today. In order to sort of kick things off, I think it's probably most appropriate to dig in on what brings us here, right? Today, we are discussing community violence intervention programs, the impact that they can have on violence reduction, investment in community violence intervention as a part of President Biden's Build Back Better agenda, as well as Congressman Horsford's Break the Cycle of Violence Act. All of this is proposing really historic funding, right, to get at the heart of the issue. But we also know that we're here because gun violence is such a pervasive problem. And I think all of us here have seen that too closely, too frequently, and continue to see it every day. I come to this movement, as many people know, as a survivor of gun violence. My parents were shot in a horrific incident in 2005. My mom was killed with a single bullet to her back. And the last words she ever said in this world were begging for her life, right? My dad was fortunate enough to survive, but too many of us have seen gun violence close and personal. Congressman Horsford, your family has been touched by gun violence directly as well. I'm wondering if you would be willing to share your story and how that has influenced your path to public service.
Well, thank you, Christian, and it's great to be on with you and Eric as well, and all of Erica Ford, as well as Greg Jackson, and I'm really delighted to be a part of this, and want to commend Brady for your tremendous advocacy. My father was shot and killed when I was 19 years old. I was a freshman in college. You know, the hard part about talking about a family member being lost to gun violence is that every time you talk about it, it's like another trauma experience that, you know, you've got to kind of live through again. And I am the oldest of four. I overcame a lot of obstacles growing up, raised by a single mom. And it was just really my mom and my younger siblings and I. My father was not always around, but I did know him. And the limited amount of time that I got to spend with him, it always reminds me how important it is to take those moments and to cherish every moment that you have. So I was a freshman in college doing what freshman students do, having fun and trying to live life and pursue my dreams of earning my degree. I was at the University of Nevada, Reno at the time. My dad was working at a local convenience store as a cook. And someone came into the convenience store apparently to rob the place, and he was told to leave by the owner. A few moments later, apparently he came back with a shotgun, and my father took a bullet to the chest. And on the way to the hospital in an ambulance, he was pronounced dead. So I never got to say goodbye to my father. I never got to tell him I loved him. He never got to see me go on to finish school or to start my family, to have 3 kids with my wife, Sonia, or to now serve in public office and to be a U.S. member of Congress. So the work that I do now is in part because of that experience. But reality, it's the experience of a lot of my constituents that I represent as well in Nevada's 4th District. So a big part of my responsibility is to be their voice in this process and to bring these type of issues to the forefront. So I'm really proud to be working with Brady and all of the gun prevention groups to advocate for the passage of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, because I really do fundamentally believe that it's about intervention, prevention, and providing hope and opportunity to the next generation of young people. So thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And I know that the constituents in the 4th District in Nevada are so lucky and to have somebody who's really taking that role so seriously. You're such a responsible and wonderful representative for that community, for your community, and we thank you for joining us today and all of your work here. Speaking of incredible organizations that are just doing incredible things, and we got 2 of them following up that introduction. So Greg, let's start with you. And I know that you come to this work as well as executive director of CJAF, representing a lot of different voices on the front lines, as well as so much of your work is informed by your own personal experiences with gun violence as well. And if you don't mind sharing your story today so we can help frame that as well, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. And again, thank you, Representative Horsford, for your leadership as well. I come to this work not by choice, but as a survivor of gun violence in April of 2013, when I was with my family who were in town visiting and celebrating a wedding. I was caught in the crossfire of a shooting and was shot as a bystander. And while the bullet hit my leg, you would think it would be something easy to shake off, but the bullet actually hit 2 arteries and left me fighting for my life due to blood loss. And I'll never forget when I arrived to the hospital, I wasn't met by nurses. I was met by investigators who frankly criminalized me as a survivor and as a victim and questioned me. And I went through 3 rounds of interrogation before I could get any care. But just to be told from my surgeon that I was about 26 minutes away from losing my life due to blood loss and that I might not make it through surgery. Luckily, I did make it through surgery, but I'll never forget the trauma of being shot, but also how I was treated as a Black male in the hospital. And unfortunately, that's a crisis that we're seeing all over the country. I think folks are aware that gun violence is a huge crisis, but for Black men and Black youth, it is the #1 cause of death for us at this time. And the overcriminalization and the way that we look at victims of gun violence in our community is seen very differently than any other community across the country. And we strongly believe that fuels this cycle of violence. And so I'm excited to be a part of Community Justice Action Fund because our mission is to change the narrative around how we see gun violence in America, to hopefully advance policy that will help address gun violence without furthering this cycle of criminalization and mass incarceration that has destroyed our community for so long. But then also to help build power through community, through organizing, through coalitions, and build up the overall strength of the neighborhoods and the individuals who have been directly impacted by this crisis of violence, to advocate on their behalf and hopefully implement the solutions that they see most fit in their own community. So excited to be here, also excited to partner with Erica Ford, and I think is a shining example of what happens when the community takes ownership of the crisis and starts to reverse things. So thank you, Christian.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. Thank you for sharing your story, Greg, and your heartfelt advocacy. Really thankful for all that you do for the movement and for the space. But exactly right. We're incredibly lucky to have Erica here, who has been a leader in the space for so long, has had such an incredible impact directly in the lives of people who are facing gun violence all too frequently, all too often. And Erica, we're just so thankful to all of the work that you've done. I know you in particular, you've in your community, you've witnessed gun violence directly so often. What inspired you to get involved, and what sustained you through this fight up until this point?
You know, as a teenager, we were experiencing gun violence every time we went out to parties, et cetera, et cetera. And, I started to see the number of my friends who I grew up with going to jail for shooting or going to the graveyard for being the victim of the shooting. And I saw the impact of that violence and that trauma, not only on our community at large, but the children that they left behind, the loved ones that they left behind. And I wanted to create something that could break the cycle of that pain and that trauma on those children and that family. And so, we started our work to give them the tools that they need, whether it's unconventional therapeutic services, yoga, meditation, all kind of healing stuff that people were afraid to talk about in the Black community, but also just sitting down with a therapist and helping you heal, because trauma is in the beginning, the middle, and the end of violence. Each one of you as men talked about something tragic that happened in your family, right? Happened to you. And that is answered different from different people, right? Some people have the tools that come to them and help them heal, or that strong family that can take them through that pain. And it turns to power, it turns to advocacy, it turns to forming an organization, or just going on and being great with your life, like a lot of the three of you right here, right? But on the other end, the pain eats people up. The pain eats people up, and it turns them into self-destruction, whether that's drugs, whether that's, doing things that they want revenge, right? And the revenge is forever going, right? Because you never really kill the person that killed your loved one. You want to just kill because you're erasing that pain that you think you can erase, right? And so trauma and therapeutic service is important to us. Healing is important to us. And so that's what made me just stay in this and keep going, seeing the effects of people healing and transforming that pain, but also seeing the more people in pain and needing to be transformed, so that we can change the conversation from generational trauma to generational wealth. And really, with this investment, can help bring those tools to the right people, both doing the work and receiving the work.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Erica, for that and for all that you're doing. I think you encapsulated it incredibly well, as always. And I think, hit the nail on the head, right? We're talking about a public health epidemic. We're talking about a public health issue that requires public health approaches. And so the only way we can take a public health approach to ending this epidemic is if we're addressing root causes, investing in solutions that work, and ultimately breaking the cycles of gun violence that Erica just highlighted right there, right? And what's driven her in this work for so long. So, we know that these CVI programs, they can't exist on their own. They require investment, they require funding. Ultimately, we know that funding has a huge impact, and I think a huge offset too, which is an important part of the discussion. CVI programs have not received significant federal funding over the course of our history, right? In 2012, the White House requested $74 million for federal grants intended to implement these programs, but Congress only gave $30 million. Many cities applying for these grants to pursue these strategies, they're being turned away. And we know, for instance, that only 4 of more than 60 cities that applied to the Justice Department for grants like these actually received the funding that they need. Congressman Horsford, you've worked with the Fund Peace Coalition, the Invest in Us Coalition, with Senator Booker and so many others to help put together and craft the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, which is just an incredibly innovative and important and critical tool that all of us are supporting and pushing and fighting for. And we're incredibly thankful to you for it. Can you tell the folks who are turning in right now, how does the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, how is it different from past attempts to reduce gun violence in America, but in particular in America's most vulnerable communities?
Yeah, I really appreciate, you raising this. And as there literally is another FBI released data, just another one today, showing that 2020 had the biggest spike in murders since national record keeping began in the 1960s. 77% of murders last year were committed with a firearm, which is the highest share ever reported. So for a long time, politicians in Washington and across the country have pointed to statistics like these to justify tough on crime policies to crack down on vulnerable communities like the one I represent, instead of working with them. So the approaches in the past aren't working. These statistics prove it. And urban communities are actually paying the price for the failure of a different response. So the good news is that, organizations like the ones that are on today know that there is a better way to do this. In Richmond, California, local officials invested in community-based violence reduction programs and saw a 70% drop in gun homicides in less than 10 years. In Massachusetts, gun homicides fell by 35% over 5 years, thanks to these programs, even as national rates of gun homicide increased. So I truly believe that gun violence intervention programs, like the one Erica is involved with, they work. They work because they use trusted messengers who are already embedded in the community to intervene in cycles of violence. These are the types of programs that Congress should invest in. They are cost effective, but more importantly, they save lives. So that's why our bill, the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, proposes a historic $5 billion of investment to support existing community violence intervention programs and to create new ones. I hate it when there's a program and they only roll it out in 10 or 15 cities, like those are the only cities that have violence. We have violence in rural areas of America and urban areas, and we need to have the funding for these programs where there are the partnerships to support them. So the Break the Cycle of Violence Act recognizes that violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. Beyond the $5 billion of investment to support community violence intervention, we also include from the Department of Labor another $1.5 billion for grant programs to provide education, job training, apprenticeship, and other pathways to opportunity for young people in the communities that are most impacted by violence. I know, having run organizations like this before I came to Congress, it's about giving young people hope. opportunity to positive programs that will help enrich their lives and give them the chance to succeed like everyone else. So this is why we have to continue to push. Obviously, I'm grateful for partners like Brady and the Community Justice Action Fund. We did mark up this bill in the Budget Committee on Saturday. As a member of that committee, I was proud to vote that out, and now it's going to the Rules Committee and then to the floor of the House. But we've got to make sure that these provisions stay in the Build Back Better Act as that moves through the process over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think incredible point and important point that you made too, just about just because we're investing in a couple of places doesn't mean we shouldn't be investing in so many other communities, right? And that's really what this funding is trying to set up to do. And even when this funding is locked in, we have to continue to try to innovate and push and make sure that we're protecting the communities most vulnerable to gun violence if we want to have a true impact. Erica, I would love if you could speak to some of this in practical measures, right? We know from statistics like the ones that Congressman Horsford just shared with us that these programs work. But I think in particular, when people see it firsthand, you can see that it works differently, right? In a way, once you see it directly. So what kind of impact do you see these programs having? What does it look like sort of day to day for incredible organizations like yours that are doing the work?
When we talk about what does it look like on the ground, there was a mother who lost her child. Her name was Carolyn Dixon. And when Carolyn Dixon's son was killed, Carolyn Dixon didn't know where to go, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so she wanted revenge. She wanted to, like just all kind of feelings, right? And I saw her on the street and I spoke to her and I was like, why don't you come and work with us, right? And she said to me that if I didn't approach her that day and get her to come and work with us, who knows what she would have done. It definitely wasn't something legal, right? And from coming to work with us, she started as an outreach worker. She then went to a supervisor. She went to a data specialist. And then she went to a consultant working with the parents. Then she started her own organization called Where Do We Go From Here, right? And this Saturday that just passed, she cut the ribbon on her own office, right? And so, and the day that her son was killed, 4 years, we worked together with the community and had no one killed in that community, right? And so those are real datas, right? That's a real life who impacted so many other lives because of who she was in the community. And so she could have went there or she could have went there, but she went there, right? And that is what is needed. The therapeutic healing and the building back of the families after they're broken, their investment is not large, right? And so we have to help on both sides of the gun. There was another young man who his friends, 3 of his friends had just got killed in a double homicide and another one in a single homicide on the same day. Without a doubt, that crew, historically revenge, right? And we went there with our 35-foot Peace Mobile and wouldn't leave until he came out. He didn't want to come outside, but we wouldn't leave until he came outside, right? And the police was like, there's no way in hell you're going to get them to not revenge in the way that the police was imagining what was going to happen in our community. But we did it, right? And we had to do unconventional things, but we did it, right? They didn't retaliate that day, and they didn't retaliate. And the individuals came to work with us. They, transformed their lives. They became different people, right? And were able to influence different things. And the process is still growing. And even in that process, it's not miracle work, right? It's not miracle work. We need real work. We need as much Army as there is in NYPD to police our streets and arrest people and develop looking into who did what crime and who are they connected to and looking at the social. We need just as much technical support, resources, and all of that. But we have one shift, one 8-hour shift, right? One staff, no bulletproof vests, no backup squad coming, no, and now things are beginning to build a little more, but it's a process of building that we have to have confidence. If we put the same resources in, the police get $6 billion here in New York City. We get probably 0.001% of that $6 billion, right? And so if it was a tenth of an equal to the budget, we could do so much more, right? And so we have to invest in it. We have to believe in it. We have to help people heal and understand that as the three of you sit here, you could have been somebody else, right? And something took for each of you to be where you are after that pain. And we have to look at human beings and understand that we have to help them heal. I spoke to one of our comrades whose son got killed in a car accident. He said they have good days and they have bad days, and everybody has those. But if we live in a community where there's no youth centers, when there's no care agencies, right? When there's no quality food, right? When we look at the holistic being of these individuals in these Black and brown communities, there's no way for them to excel from their pain. So we have to change the narrative, and we have to invest more, and we have to bring more soldiers like you brothers on the ground from all avenues of our work. There's different lanes for different people. And this is an industry, right, that we're building around violence prevention. And we thank you, Representative Horsford, for that.
Yeah, just and what an incredible point you're making about the massive ripple effect, right? I mean, and your focus and work maybe with one individual may start out with that individual, but the broader impact that work has in the community surrounding that individual is nearly impossible to quantify when you tell some of these stories and when you see the outreach that individuals are doing after the fact or during the work, right? Really, really thankful to you, Erica, for that, and for putting yourself on the front lines to make sure that there are options, right, and that there are new outlets to break those cycles. I wonder, Greg, if you can help us sort of link these things, right? So we've got this incredible push from Representative Horsford and others to get this funding, some of this coalition work, really trying to ensure that we protect it, that it gets there so that communities can get the funding they need. You've got, what Erica is laying out of what this work looks like in the direct lives of people who she's working with, and what Life Camp is doing to incredibly and drastically improve the lives of community members in New York. Greg, from a high level, what do these CBI programs look like, right? What are some of these models, even just from a theoretical public health approach, what are the types of CBI programs that are being employed in the United States?
I definitely could speak to that. I do want to just thank Erica again, because she said something really powerful that, any of us, the three of us, could have been the next person that's out on the street causing harm. And I'm getting a little emotional because this weekend I just came from a wedding of my cousin Corey, who was at the scene when I was shot. And he could have easily been shot and killed. And I watched him getting married with his two loving daughters beside him, and his entire family and joy, and looking good in his white tuxedo, and it's like, man, but all it would have taken was that bullet to go a different direction for him not to be here, or that anger that he expressed in the hospital with me. If he had acted on that anger, then he wouldn't have this family, and he wouldn't have this opportunity. And whether it be behind bars or harmed himself, his life could have been destroyed if it wasn't for people in his corner in that moment. So I don't know. I'm sorry I had to reflect that, but thank you again, Erica, for illuminating how real that fork in the road is for so many folks. And so when we talk about what CBI programs are, at its simplest definition, there are programs that engage those who are most at risk to either being harmed or being an offender of violence. And they take an array of different approaches. Some do direct violence intervention where they de-escalate or intervene conflicts, whether it's group or individual, but basically help resolve that conflict in a more peaceful manner before it becomes lethal. Some programs focus on hospital-based engagement and supporting people in that very pivotal moment of when they're recovering or when they've lost someone in the hospital. Other programs focus directly on victim services and those who have been directly impacted, just like how Erica illuminated with the young man who had lost his friends, intervening and working with him from a healing approach and serving him as a victim or someone who's been impacted is another model of community violence intervention programs. And then lastly, there are programs that take a more proactive approach where they look for those most at risk and they provide programmatic services, whether it's in classroom training, employment services. Some even take them on trips to get them out of their neighborhood, to learn more about the world. But I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, this crisis of violence is very predictable, and it's very predictable about who's going to be impacted, who will be lost, and who will frankly be the next one to pick up the gun. And law enforcement know that, right? They know, they have the list. They know exactly who those individuals are. They know the stories just as fast as the community does oftentimes. But what we haven't seen in our federal government and in America's approach is that if we know, who is likely to get harmed or harm someone else, we don't throw anything at them in a constructive way. We don't pour resources into them. We don't try to intervene or de-escalate. We wait until something bad happens, and then we crack down with the law and order approach. And these CBI programs get to those individuals before the harm happens and take that proactive, community-focused approach and combine that with real services, whether it's therapeutic, whether it's mental health, whether it's employment, whether it's housing, but really provide the services to help people navigate through that conflict or navigate through that trauma without harming someone else. And I think, Christian, you spoke to this earlier, and the president of the United States, President Biden, acknowledged this on April 8th, is that these programs have seen upwards of 60% reduction in gun violence just by focusing on those who are most at risk. And so we have to ask ourselves, if the goal is ending gun violence and we know we have solutions that work, then why will we not fund them, right? Why are we only talking $5 billion? Our country loses $280 billion a year to the crisis of violence. That's how much our economy is losing. So we're already paying for the death that's happening, but we have yet to invest in solutions that we know work. And we've yet to fund peace and programs that implement and spread peace through our communities. Instead, we're just paying for the violence, we're paying for the death, and we're paying for it with our wallets, with our tax-paying dollars, and in our communities, we're paying for it with our lives. And so hopefully that's a good summary of these strategies. Don't let anyone say that they're not proven, that they're not researched, because there's plenty of evidence around their impact. And if we know it can have even a slight impact, we should be jumping to invest in it. Thank you.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. If we have way too much evidence to show these programs in action, we have way too many anecdotes of seeing the direct impact in people's lives. There is absolutely no reason why these programs should not be funded, especially considering how much money we spend on other solutions. This is really a drop in the bucket for the kind of community building that Erica is describing, right? Like, we're really talking about building up and strengthening communities in a way that is, it's not novel or innovative or new, because folks have been on the front lines doing this in communities for a long time, right? And for generations, but it's been studied enough at this point that we should sure as hell be funding it and working hard to do so in a way that's consistent and long-term. Congressman Horsford, I wonder if I can, and I know we're going to wind down on time here. I wonder if real quick I could just ask you, hopefully we've got a captive audience that's listening, that's watching, that cares deeply about these issues. And if they didn't before, they sure should now. What should folks watching be doing to support you and your efforts to secure this funding so that folks like Erica can get out in the field and really get this work done? What do you think folks watching should be doing to be as supportive as possible to the work that you're leading?
Well, thank you, Christian, for that opportunity. And Erica and Greg, I look forward to continuing to work with you, because You all give me a lot of inspiration. I actually just met a couple of weeks ago with a group of young people in my district who also have been affected by gun violence. And I listened to them. Actually, I had Congressman Hakeem Jeffries there with me. And we listened as they explained the support they needed as young people to be successful. And all of them talked about what the Break the Cycle of Violence Act would mean to them, how it would have helped in their situation when they were affected by gun violence, and how they still need the support even now. And so my message to anyone listening is to get involved. Get involved with Brady, get involved with the other organizations, because this process only happens with your involvement and advocacy. What do I mean by this? Elections have consequences. The fact that we are advocating for a total of 6.5 billion, I agree, it's not enough, but it's a historic amount ever proposed for violence intervention and the strategies that we know work. One is we got to get it over the finish line. Two, we've got to make sure that the agencies that administer the money do it in an effective way so that we can continue to prove that this approach works. I am really adamant that I'm going to work closely with the Department of Health and Human Services and other agencies to make sure that we're doing it in a way that addresses the public health crisis and that we're not adding more punitive measures around community-based interventions. And it needs to be led by those who are affected by the pain. The people impacted need to be involved in shaping the policy from beginning to end. And we cannot lose sight on that. A lot of times decisions get made by people who aren't directly impacted. And in this case, that can't happen. And so for those who are watching, who have been touched in one way or another, we need your help, because we still got to get this over the finish line, meaning passed and signed by the President Biden. It is in his budget, and we are making tremendous progress, but I don't believe in anything until it's done around in Congress. And secondly, we need to make sure that it actually is implemented in the ways that we envision, and that it touches the communities and the people who can most benefit. Erica described beautifully how she actually got those parents and other people affected by violence involved in the work. That's what this should be about. The people involved in the pain should help lead this work going forward. And so it absolutely continues from here. And you can always contact my office. Make sure you contact your member of Congress and tell them to sign on. If they're not already a sponsor of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, tell them to be a sponsor. We have more than 100 sponsors now, but we could use more. And when it comes to the floor for a vote, make sure that they are voting for the Break the Cycle of Violence investments to our communities.
Great, really, really well said. And yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes we can be intimidated by the legislative process. Your member of Congress, it works to represent you in Washington, D.C. They should definitely be hearing from you, and love what you said, Congressman. It is critical that we lift up the voices of those impacted most by these policies. We have to make sure that survivors are embedded in every aspect of this work. That's the only way we can ensure that we're doing the right things. I am going to do one last sort of round robin to see if there's any comments. I know you got to jump, Congressman, so I'm gonna go to you first. Just if you have any final thoughts, although you just really encapsulated everything well, so I'm not gonna put you too much on the spot. If you've got to bounce, that is completely fine with us, because you definitely hit the nail on the head. But any final words, and then we'll bounce to some of these other panelists as well.
No, I want to hear from Erica and Greg, but let me just close by saying the day that we introduced the Break the Cycle of Violence Act, was the 28th anniversary of my father's death. It was not by coincidence. We didn't plan it that way, but it wasn't by coincidence. So nothing happens by accident. I am proud and honored to be in the position that I am, to be able to advocate for this type of policy. But it's all of you who have done the work, who have built the case, who have shown the evidence that community violence prevention and intervention is the way. And we need a different approach, and this is the approach. So let's go out and continue to make the case. And I'm really honored to be a part of this effort with the Brady campaign and CGF and everybody else who's involved in this effort. Erica and Greg, thank you so much, Christian, for your leadership. And I look forward to making, we're gonna have a signing ceremony when this is all done, and we're gonna celebrate. But until then, the work continues. So God bless you all.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thank you. I'm really proud and honored to be working alongside of you, Congressman. Greg, I'm going to do you a favor, man. I'm going to let you go before Erica, so you don't have to follow her. Okay, that's the kind of looking out that I'm going to do on this panel for you today. So, Greg, what are your final thoughts here as we close down this incredible panel?
Well, I'm always going to follow Erica forward, even if I'm in front of the agenda. But thank you again, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I think Representative Horsford laid it out beautifully, but this is, you know, I just want people to really realize there is a way that we can end gun violence. And this life that we're living, this world that we're in, it's not normal that people have to suffer through so much violence, but it's also not irreversible. And we can change this. And we've seen it happen in communities. There's a neighborhood in Baltimore that has completely stalled out any violent activity in their communities because of their approach to community violence intervention strategies. And it's not because of the media, it's not because of the policing, it's because of the pure investment and the hard work and leadership of leaders in that community. And so we have examples like that all over the country where neighborhoods are turning this tide of violence, but they need the support, they need the resources, they need the time and the capacity, and we can offer that. And our federal government definitely can. And so I just thank you again for tuning in. I just want to reinforce to y'all, just, you know, stay in the fight with us, remain a believer that we can reduce this violence. And unfortunately, you know, we have to be the believers, because our children and our children's children should not have to live in a world like this. And our country has faced so many crises that have impacted so many communities in negative ways over the years. We found a way to combat most of those challenges and reverse those crises to make our communities safer. And I really believe gun violence is one we can overcome as well. So I hope you will join us. Please follow at CJ Action Fund. Follow us on social media. There's a lot of ways you can join us to take action directly, to help call your member of Congress, to write, to text, to email, but really to just get involved in this effort because we need you. Every year, over 100,000 people are impacted by this crisis. But to me, I see that as 100,000 more soldiers on the battlefield to address this crisis. And so we hope that you'll join us and help us reverse this critical crisis that is causing so much harm right now. But thank you again.
Wonderful. And thank you, Greg. Thanks for all the incredible work that you do, that CGF does. We at Brady are so excited to be able to work on this. We're also mindful of the fact that we're following the lead of so many leaders, so many Black and brown leaders in particular, that are doing good for communities most at risk of this kind of violence, and are just incredibly honored to be able to do this work alongside you with that in mind. And speaking of paving the way and all the incredible work that's been done and the foundation that's been created for where we are right now, Erica, please close us out on this panel and give us any lasting thoughts that you have.
I just want to say that thank you. I'm just a humble servant of Greg's and everybody else in the Fun Peace team. And for Christian, you know, I remember one day I was cursing Christian and a whole bunch of other folks out. And then Christian came to me and he explained his story, and we had a real conversation. And I apologize. And then also, you know, we are now working together. And I say that because we all are not going to agree. We are going to have very challenging times because we are building past our pain. And sometimes our pain gets us all stuck, no matter whether we are elected official, a servant in this work, a police officer, somebody coming to the work from the pain of being a victim. We are going to have challenging times, but we can get through those challenging times if we stay committed to our vision and our mission. And that is to break the cycle of the pain that our communities are going through, the violence that is taking the lives of so many of our children, and our families are being destroyed. And so in New York City, we had a weekend where absolutely no one was shot. We had a whole week where no one was killed. And if that can happen at any point in time in New York City, invested, it can happen forever, right? A young man came to me last week, Thursday, and he said to me, his name is Prince, and he came to me when he first came home from jail. And he said, I want to work for you. And I said, you can't, because you just came home from jail, and the requirements are you have to be home for 6 months. And he got, he didn't want to hear that, right? And he left, and then I thought about it, and I said, no, I'm gonna take a chance and I'm gonna hire you. And he came to me Thursday and he said, if you didn't hire me, I know for a fact I would be dead right now. He said, and he thanked me in the midst of us being attacked by people who are, upset because we can't resolve every single thing in everybody's life, right? And I say that because while we go through these things of trying to pass these bills, our families are in pain and being destroyed, and our workers are also under attack, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So for elected officials, right, let's work stronger together to make sure that in every city, the people who are really doing the work can get the resources because the resources are there, and expand through this bill and all the other bills that are coming into being so that we can really transform the lives of people who are oppressed across the nation. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this.
No, thank you. And thank you for letting all of us be a part of this work, for your vulnerability and sharing what it looks like. And I think all of these opportunities that we have to make sure that we're highlighting just how big this funding can be, right? Just how historic this funding can be, just how many communities don't have to go on and experience gun violence the way that too many communities experience gun violence today. It doesn't have to be that way. And we're a group of people here that firmly believe that. We would not be doing the things that we are doing unless we truly believed in our heart that we can have an impact on gun violence. So I am so honored and blessed to be able to be here with you people today, right? To be able to having this conversation with this esteemed group of panelists. All of us are going to continue this fight and continue this work until we get this funding, until we get more funding, until we can have a true, huge, and final lasting impact on gun violence overall. Erica is just letting folks know in the chat, in case you can't see it, to text Fund Peace to 51555. That will help you join this fight, this critical fight with these incredible leaders. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today. Thank you each and every one of you who are joining on Facebook Live or wherever you might be tuning in. Share this. Make sure that people understand what's at stake. We need your voice. We need you to be a part of this. We can't do this alone. We are calling on you right now to join us in this fight to secure this funding so that we can continue this work and end gun violence. So thank you, everybody. And I hope you have a good day.